Hello, my name is Max Gold. I am at Year 8 in Bialik College and I chose photography as my STS project. So for the topic I did Indian miners, so they were an introduced species and their impact on native birds. So what happened was they were introduced because they wanted to keep down the bugs and pests. They wanted to have something to eat them and bring numbers down. So this is around the 1860s. And so what happened was it backfired. And so what happened was the Indian miners, they started reproducing and competing for nesting spaces and basically sort of disrupting the ecosystem for native animals. And this is obviously a pretty bad thing to happen. So, we'll just look at some of the photos. So this one I called Feeding Frenzy, because there are many miners and they were all swarming a food source, which is pretty disgusting and a nuisance. So for the caption, a swarm of miners all gathering around a food source and fighting over it. I used a wide angle shot to show how many there are. The next one is called A Roost of Miners. Miners have taken over an area with constant food sources outnumbering the native birds and causing disruption in the ecosystem. A wide-angle shot has been used to capture many of them. This next one is pretty interesting. It looks pretty ugly. I called it Deathly Stare because of how it's staring into your eyes. It looks very disturbing. This photo is a miner just staring directly at my camera. It looks as if it's staring the very soul out of your body, because it's very disturbing. I used the rule of thirds to show just for a nice little style. So this is Miner Beacon Eye. The reason why I could get so close with this photo is because of how tame they are, because they know people are a food source. This image shows how tame they can be around people because miners live in suburban areas and know that humans are a reliable food source. A close-up shot has been taken to show the eyes and beak in detail. Now I call this one A Pair in a Puddle. I captured these territorial miners after they aggressively kicked out a native bird so that they could have water for themselves. This was another close-up shot. Now this one is called On the Lookout. This image is of a miner standing on a branch, probably lookout to protect its territory. Wide angle shot. Okay, so some of the filming methods of photography I used was sort of getting close to the ground to so for this shot, I went close to the ground to sort of get the whole body and also blur a bit of the background with the aperture wide open. So what happens with a wide open aperture is it blurs the background and also lets more light in, so I can compromise my aperture by using a faster shutter speed and also a lower ISO, so I don't need as much light as in, for example, this photo. So my aperture was sort of closed a bit so I could get a bit more in focus. And that's because I wanted to film 4 birds. So all of them are in the photo. Now for this one, I used an open aperture, but for this one, I had a pretty closed aperture to also get a lot of them in the frame. And so they're all in focus. So this one, it was pretty far away from me, so even with the maximum zoom, with my 800mm lens, it's 600. Even with a 600mm lens, because it was so far away, I could only get a small amount of bird in the overall picture. So this was sort of a wide angle shot, and I took of the bird sort of looking around, probably looking to protect its territory. Now this one, I went full on with the zoom to try and get as close as possible to the bird's eye and beak. And so where I did this was I went to Royal Botanical Gardens because they have a little cafe there where people eat, and so basically the miners know that people eat there, and so basically they sort of swarm the food like in here. It's pretty disgusting. I went around 12 p.m. because that's when most of the people eat, to try and capture as many birds as possible. There are also people that work there that have certain countermeasures in place to try and like get rid of the birds, but they haven't been much used. For example, like a noise device they tried to use, but also it like annoys the people, so they can't use that as well. And so basically it's just become sort of a nuisance for the native birds and for the people working there. So especially, and also the people that are eating. So it's sort of a problem like for many different aspects. Alright, so the scientific principles I used for these photos was visual evidence and documentation. So the visual evidence was of the presence and behaviour in various habitats to help understand the distribution extent of invasion and in like local gardens in Victoria and the parks. Secondly, I used behavioural analysis to show like detailed analysis of their interactions with the environment and also with other birds. So for example, when they're foraging, nesting, being aggressive, stuff like that. So also with photography, I was able to show their habitat. So with all of this, you can see they sort of hang around trees, but also in like areas where people are. So you can see like this was on a table, this was on a table as well. This was on a chair. So you can sort of see the chair outline right there. And so basically they're sort of everywhere. Now, so this threatens native birds' biodiversity because of how many there are, and because they're competing for nests and just areas to like reside in. And so basically they kick the native birds out of their territory and claim it as their own. So yeah. So what I'm trying to do as well is raise public awareness about this and try and get people to do more action on the impact of these invasive species, and to try and help out the native birds because they can't do this alone. So yeah, that's basically my topic.